All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here and we are live. Welcome to her talk show. My name is Sabrina Victoria, and I am here with Whitney Baker. We are
Here and
talking.
we are live. Welcome to her talk show. My name is Sabrina Victoria, and I am here with Whitney.
Did you hear that? Dude, it's so funny. Whitney and I were literally just talking about just like off the cuff stuff that happens during podcasts. And then, quite literally, I had my YouTube open and I just heard my own echo. That was great. Look at us on a roll. All right, ladies, get comfortable. Whitney is here. We're going to be talking all about self priority and how it's actually our superpower. She's going to be digging in, giving you some inspiration. And this isn't just for your professional growth, which is what I love. This is also for your personal growth. So let's jump in. All right. If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We are here delving deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed close to 700 women. And today we are adding another one to the list. We have Whitney Baker. She is the founder of Electric Ideas, which I just freaking love that name. She helps modern women, especially moms, yes, reclaim their inner spark so they can feel alive in their own lives again. I get that. As a self connection coach and a certified meditation teacher, she blends space making with soul led doing. Yes. Oh, that's just beautiful. Guiding women out of autopilot and back into alignment with what matters most. With a master's degree in journalism, Whitney brings a storyteller's clarity to her work, making self connection feel accessible in the middle of everyday demands. Girl, I feel like every woman listening can feel all of that.
I'm so glad and I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, girl, absolutely. So before we actually dive in, self priority, right? We all know what self means, we all know what a priority is. Self priority. To be completely honest, I've never heard these two words put together like that. Can you dig in? What is this self priority?
Yes. Well, every single woman has had this sense and received messages, whether it's from childhood, society, social media, that we are supposed to give, give, give. You add motherhood to the mix and it becomes super real. We are in high demand. And there's this whole idea that's become super prevalent for a lot of women, that mommy martyrdom and just being the all giving mom is to be celebrated. And I'm sick of it. I'm done with that. Because what fundamentally I think is when we lose our self connection and we become resentful, who are we really showing up for? What are we really doing in the world? So,
Okay, hang on. Explain this a little bit more. I hear you.
yeah,
This is really good. Explain that a little bit more, that you're what you're sick of. That was so good. Go like a step further for those that are just chiming in.
yeah. So, what I'm sick of is moms who are always answering, how are you doing? I'm busy. I'm doing, I'm going, 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 and acting like their sacrifice is what's making us all better. And I'm here to help women really flip that thinking on their head and take practical action to stop with that nonsense. And that's what I'm talking about with the self connection. When you deeply believe that your well being matters and that when you're at your best, that ripple is what's best for all, it fundamentally changes how you approach your days in your life.
So this is reminding me of the put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Did something happen? What is making you so cheerleader on this?
Well, I think I went through my own experience where I was, working in a glossy creative field that I kind of had my act together. I had two daughters, 14 months apart. lo and behold, shit hit the fan. And I was burnout. I was the person who was exhausted. I was, having trouble being present for the people I loved. I wasn't taking care of myself. I'd forgotten a lot of pieces of my core identity because I was just working so hard to keep everything afloat and keep everybody else happy. And I'll also add, which I think a lot of moms specifically face, is after you have children and you go back to the workforce, you overdo it because you're trying to prove something oftentimes. And I think we need to start having real conversations that you don't have the same capacity, especially in those early years. And the expectations that we put on ourselves is part of what's ridiculous.
Absolutely. So, okay, so there's a few things that I kind of want to touch on. The first thing that I kind of want to dig into, which I know that is something that you speak on quite a bit, is starting the day. So the morning, the people listening live here, entrepreneurs, mothers, wives, there's a lot on their plate. We're all going through perimenopause, menopause. We're trying to lose weight. We got cellulite growing on our thighs. There's so much. There's so much to do, and there's also so much to think about. So when we wake up in the morning, right, immediately our brains just start rolling. What did you do, or what do you talk to your clients about as far as changing our mornings?
This is a great question. And what I recommend is practicing a pattern interrupt. I think one of the most disempowering things you can do for your day and for your life is to wake up and immediately give your energy and attention to someone outside of yourself. How does this take form? I bet 90% of your listeners wake up and flip on their phone. They're giving their focus and their energy to social media, to their email, or they wake up to somebody or a pet barking or a child literally tugging at them saying, Mom. So when we start our day immediately outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused, it usually creates a trajectory for how our energy is going to go. I've found, you know, because you're right. I just want to rewind just back to what you said, Sabrina. We've got a lot going on. Our bodies are changing. We're raising families. We're keeping our households afloat. We're working. We're doing stuff in the community. There's always going to be something. So what I like to do is work with my clients to find pockets in their everyday, busy, messy lives where they can intentionally feel empowered and claim that self-connection and self-care. And I found mornings to be a really great starting point because it's the most predictable. Anybody can wake up 15 minutes earlier and decide to make a choice to do something that feels good, that puts them in that feeling tone of how they want to act that day. And it's such a better way to start the day. I'll also just share something that I feel like is kind of fun to think about. I think about mornings as fractals almost. So a fractal is something in science, a shape, like in a leaf or anything like that, that repeats itself. So if you wake up, you've hit snooze, you stub your toe, you're crabby, okay, then you're walking past your partner. Are you likely to be like, hey, sweetie? Are you like going to be in grumpy mode? And then you feel guilty because you were grumpy. It's a spiral effect. So when we consciously choose to get up and spend a little time pouring into ourselves first, that's going to have a ripple in our whole day. And it's going to feel much more like we are making a conscious choice.
Absolutely love all of that. So, first thing waking up, have inward thinking.
Well, okay. So I am for
Outward
tools, not rules. Tools, not rules is what I say. And so I happen to love starting my day with meditation. I teach meditation. It's my thing. I think that but I'm not the person that says you have to meditate or your day will unfurl in a horrible way, you know? I think you need to find what makes you feel good in your day. And if you don't know what that is, start giving yourself 5 to 15 minutes where you get to like practice and explore. So Sabrina, it could be stretching, it could be laying there, it could be sipping your morning tea without any, distraction, and just actually like sitting down. I really like a morning practice that involves some sort of self-connection. So that can be through meditation or journaling or something where you kind of just can touch base and be like, what's going on? What do I want today to feel like? But it doesn't have to be universal. I think we can give ourselves permission to explore what feels good in a given season.
What if what feels good is scrolling on TikTok while on the toilet?
Then I don't want to hear your excuses. It's hilarious. Well, that's honestly the reality. This is the thing. A lot of women, the number one thing that I hear is, I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm tired. I don't, whatever. And scrolling not only gives our energy away, it drains our cognitive resources. So we always have more choice than we give ourselves credit for. I want to save my sharpest mind and thinking for things that are going to move the needle in my life and in my business. And if I start my day in that disempowering way, then that's a choice I'm making. I want to caveat by saying we're all human. This is a practice. It's not about being perfection, but I feel like it just seems like we give away a lot of our agency by just like doing that kind of mind numbing, because it's not a break. It's really actually taxing our mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear, I have a story that I want to share, but I would also love to hear a story either with you or a client about how shifting the morning caused some real goodness as far as a superpower for that person. But what's kind of coming up for me before you share that story is I remember clearly I was listening to some sort of podcast probably about 4 years ago. And very similar to what you said, as far as like, everyone always says they don't have any time, but then if you really calculate all the scrolling that you do, you actually do have plenty of time to do all of the things. And I remember I was listening to this podcast and he said, if you're the type of person that tends to say that you don't have time, right? So I don't know what my thing back then was, but the thing right now is working out, right? Spending some time to work out, sweat, get my sweat on. And he said, if you just sit right now and you just blankly, just like sporadically, just tell yourself that you don't have time for things. And then in that same moment, you take the time and you almost threaten yourself of like, hey, I'm going to start writing down what I do every hour. It's kind of like a food journal.
Mm-hmm.
You really start to calculate, like, dude, fucking, I watched 3 hours of Netflix last night. Damn, like, I could have been doing some crunches that whole time. It's like stuff like that, where you need some reminder sometimes. You need like a Whitney Baker in your ear sometimes, kind of reminding you of like, you don't have time, really, you don't have time. Because sometimes we forget, right, what we're actually doing throughout the day and the nuances that we're doing, the aimless scrolling that we're doing. We could actually be doing something a little more beneficial that would lessen the overwhelm versus create the overwhelm. So I'm just interested, like, do you have like a morning story that you could share with the listeners?
Yes, I can. Before I get to that, I just want to say to what you said, I love that because I feel like awareness is always a good place to start. Something that, some of my clients will even set timers like a couple times a day, and it'll be like, A, take a mini break, which we can talk about like at any point during the show, but B, ask yourself the question, what am I doing right now? And half the time when they talk about their priorities and values in their life, and then if it's not what they're doing, it's just a good reminder, like, okay, did I just like slink off into this like, oh, okay, I work from home, so I'm doing like C- level need work because I'm kind of avoiding writing the thing or doing the thought piece or whatever. I think sometimes we can do unimportant things as kind of an avoidance technique, especially as entrepreneurs.
Dude, I just did this morning, which we're still by stepping your story. But this morning, so one of my good friends, we're actually hosting a business retreat coming up. I texted her this morning, I voice messaged her this morning. I'm like, dude, I have so much fucking shit to do right now. I don't know what to do first. So I'm literally opening up junk mail right now. That's what I'm gonna do. And literally, I'm just sitting here with a pile of junk mail from like the week, right? Because we just keep it on the little credenza thing out in the main room. We pull the stuff that's important, and then there's just a whole pile of just junk mail. And I was so overwhelmed this morning with so many high priority things that had to get done that I couldn't even fucking breathe. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna open up junk mail and just read junk mail and clear this off my desk. But to your point, right? It's like finding just mundane things to do that are not important whatsoever that could be done while we're watching 3 hours of Netflix easily.
For real. Yes. I think that any entrepreneur probably can relate to that. And I feel like you have to really differentiate between taking conscious breaks
Yeah.
and making sure that you're like doing something that's actually a break during those breaks.
Yeah.
And escapism, right? And avoiding not sharing your voice, not sharing your work, not stepping into your power as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. That one thing that I have started doing probably within the last 2 years is I always used to, because right, I work from home, right? Working, always working. I'm definitely one of these people that you're talking about as far as like always saying that I'm busy. I actually just made a post the other day that I haven't posted yet, but it says something to the effect of like, are you busy? And then my answer is, I'm always fucking busy. Like, what are you talking about? Why are you asking me if I'm busy? I'm always busy. But to your point, right? But one thing that I have started to cognizantly do over the last couple of years is eat and relax. So, like, I'll turn on a non-educational podcast about, or not even non-educational, non-business podcast about health, about wellness, about politics, about culture, and I'll eat and just relax and I'll put my feet up. Sometimes I'll go outside and just like turn my brain off from business. Because I was just so used to just eating, working, or even if I did eat and not work, I'd be watching like one of the programs that I'm in. So I'm learning something, one of the courses that I'm running on business or marketing or sales. So it's just constant, right? Just pumping my brain, just constantly full of so much stuff. And I feel like that has actually helped me kind of like breathe into my life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really great example, Sabrina. I have two things to say to that. One, I commend you because, I'm not like a food or a health coach, but I do feel like similarly in my life, it's like, do you love yourself enough to sit down and have a meal?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not out of this like punishment or forcing for me. It's always like, can you love yourself into your highest expression? So for me, I definitely had gotten some bad habits when I was, you know, crazed in that former version of me and had a little kids, and you're sitting there like eating a rejected piece of grilled cheese and like that garbage, like no one feels good. And I really, in terms, you talk about stories, like again, practice, not perfect, but most days for my meals, I try to shut everything down, no technology. Cool if you're listening to something, but definitely not looking at something and trying to do something. And I say like a small intentional like prayer, if you will. It's just like maybe that may this be exactly what I need to nourish me today.
Mm.
And it's almost just this little moment. And just because I know you're interested in this, I think that there is some like research that's coming out that your body actually can absorb better because you're in a little bit more of that rest and digest.
Okay.
One other thing I just wanted to say is like a kind of a radical shift that a woman who is like, you've got so much energy to do so many good things, and you kind of have to decide if taking true rest actually allows you to show up better. And I would argue that it does. And that's a big shift. It's not just like, oh, let's all sit in the sun. It's like I deeply think that when my brain and my body have intentional rest, I'm more creative and I'm way better in position to be of service.
Yeah. Why do you think that there is such a connotation around like us prioritizing ourselves? Why do we see it as selfish?
Oh God, I think it goes across, generations and generations of women's empowerment, really. So I can't exactly pinpoint, but I feel like women, even though we've come and changed so much as moms, we still carry the majority of women still carry a lot of the mental, emotional load of motherhood, of parenting. And there's always going to be new to dos adding to the list. And so sometimes when we feel like we're putting ourselves first, we feel like it's selfish because we're going to drop the ball in somebody else's life. And you know what? Sometimes we do have to drop a couple balls in order to stay in touch with ourselves. But I can tell you that feeling guilty and that mom guilt feeling is universal. One thing that's unique to me is that I've worked 5 days in a full-time cutthroat, 4 days, 3 days. I've freelanced for about every type of company. I took an intentional pause and I now run my own company. And there's been periods of mom guilt throughout my entire, it just doesn't matter. It's always grass is greener. But it's only been until these shifts I've made recently where I feel like I don't have that really anymore. So that's been a big shift.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think that is something like, just the guilt. Like I think about, and I think a lot of it's also identity.
Mm,
Like, I definitely hold the identity of somebody who like works hard. It really is part of my identity. It like means everything to me. And think anything that like rattles that is very frustrating for me. Um, because it has just become, I remember when I first, probably like 2 years into building this business, it became apparent to a lot of the women in my community that the vision that I have and for the business, for the expansion of Her Nation Global, I was going to need to start bringing people on because it was just like so much. And I was doing it all by myself. It was expanding very quickly. And a lot of the ladies were like, dude, like, you need help. You're working so much. Like, I'm sending out email. They're getting emails from me at 3 in the morning and then 6 in the morning. And then for, just I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep. They can clearly see it. Not because I'm acting any differently, but just like, you can just, with the amount of stuff that was getting done, there's just no way that a person working just 8 hours a day is doing that much. Um, and I remember an aha moment happening where I realized it wasn't like, a lot of people are like, I don't want to relinquish control of my company because no one's going to do it as good as me.
mm,
Yes. But my issue was, if I'm not doing it, that means that I'm like lazy, lax, you know, like I can't own that anymore. I can't own that as like, I did this, I worked this hard. A very ego, like very my identity of like, I did this all by myself. And I wouldn't be able to say that anymore. And that like hit my ego. And I had to have like a serious conversation over the course of like months and months and months of like, dude, what do I want more? Do I want the whole thing is mine and the like title of that, or do I want to grow the fucking business the way that I'm telling everybody that I am? And there was some serious conversations I had to have like all by myself, just on like long walks. Like, what am I doing? Why am I killing myself like this? Like, what is the gain? Who cares? um but I think for some of us it is hard. It is hard to let go of the identity of, I'm doing everything and I'm very busy all the time.
yeah. Oh. Yes, and I can really relate to that. I mean, even it wasn't until I was working in agency, which is like working dog years, where no matter how hard you work, there's always more work. So there's really never this like feeling of like good work, but it's just like here's some more. Oh, you got that done early? Great. There's no break. And then start when I started my own business, I was confronted by some crap I picked up along the way that, in a similar vein, to be honest. I mean, I grew up in Iowa where it is roll up your sleeves, hard work. I mean, both my parents are type A.
Yep. Same.
Relaxing was never modeled for me.
Same.
And so I kind of thought that I was carrying this belief that like the harder I work, the farther I'll get. And I really had to go deep and like really parse out the difference between having grit and a good work ethic with working for working's sake, working for escapism, working for ego.
Yeah.
And really peeling back, like, to what point, like all the women and people in your community are building businesses and building lives. And at some point, if we get so heads down and it's not just a season, it's like permanent, like what are we doing? What are we building, and who's it for, and who's it really serving? If we can't like sit down and have a cup of coffee with our best friend and a laugh, I think then we've lost ourselves a little bit in our businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to kind of pivot a little bit and speak on, which goes right along with what we're talking about. But a lot of people view this as like burnout, or like they're barely surviving. Like, I know I've hit that a few times. I don't know if I've ever gone through burnout. I don't know what burnout is. I don't like relate to that. But also I probably have, and I just don't know. It kind of reminds me of like I've had so many anxiety attacks, but I didn't know it was an anxiety attack until like 25 years later. I was like, oh, fuck, dude, I was having anxiety attacks like every week. Like,
Yeah.
full on shaking, can't drive, on the floor, screaming, crying, like just, and I had no idea that that's even what that was. So I feel like sometimes you're in the middle, right? You're in the middle of a burnout. You're in survival mode. How do we recognize it, right? We're talking to women business owners here. I know they're relating to a lot of things that we're saying. They're all the things, right? They're the wife, they're the mom. We're trying to work out. We're still trying to stay hot. Like, we still have to be hot in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's a lot of pressure on us. How do we know? How do we recognize this when we're in the middle of it? Speaking directly to the ladies who are listening live, the ladies who are listening on the replay.
Yeah. Great question. I just want to reflect back what you said, because I don't know that we know we're in it when we're in it. It's just like we all know now, and science shows that being like a little bit of stress is good, like before the presentation or whatever. But chronic stress wreaks havoc on our well-being, and a lot of women are living and running their businesses in this state of low level, sometimes high level chronic stress. A few things that I would say, especially from my own experience and just like seeing my clients, how they respond when they come into my programs. It's like, if you are someone who at the end of the night you're tired but wired, that's a red flag. If you can't like ease into rest, if you wake up and you just like immediately every single day have that like monkey mind and have to like start over going, go, 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 just like what's next. And you feel guilty about taking a break or resting. I also feel like a big one for me, well, two more, because I really think it shows up individually. And I have a feeling that the ladies that are listening they know. If you think, "Ooh, that could be me," it's probably you, and maybe something to explore. I think for a lot of women, it's like you can't remember the last time you just lost track of time doing something you enjoyed, or you felt genuinely like lit up in your own life. Like you start to just almost schedule like even like a dinner out or travel or whatever, and it's like you are managing your life instead of living it, and it becomes this sense of that you're just keeping things going. You're not really having this like lit up, activated experience in your life. Final red flag, I would say, is resentment. It's a very low level emotion to be marinating in for a long time. And when women get burnout, I think oftentimes they resent their work, they resent their partner, they resent their families. And that's usually a red flag that comes up in my communities.
That was also good. I would kind of, if you're open to it, and I don't know if you coach in this arena, but kind of what's coming up for me, which we don't have enough time to touch on this, but while you were speaking, the feminine, the masculine energy just like came up as far as like, I feel as if some of this has to do with the imbalance of the household
Mm,
and the husband or lack of a partner. Um, like just lack, like doesn't have one, has a lot to do with this. That's kind of what came up for me with some of this. Like some of this should be taken on by the partner.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me, I just came out of a relationship with somebody who was very femme, and I felt like I felt like I was doing everything all the time. And I just, couldn't breathe all the time. And I just started dating someone. We've been together for a year, and the vibe is just totally different. Like I feel so relaxed around him. Like I feel like, and we're not living together or anything, but just like he takes care of so much within the relationship, right? We're not living together. We haven't like joined anything, but just like in the relationship, there's so much that he's taking care of that for the first time, like quite honestly, for the very first time in my whole life, there are areas, predominantly when he's with me, where I totally 100% zone out, relaxed, because like he's just taking care of like he's just, I just know that that we're good.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to micromanage or look at the clock, or because he is like in control. And it's the very first time I have ever had that feeling, and it's so nice.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Do you touch on that at all as far as
I
like,
can speak into this a little bit. I mean, I think that you're talking about kind of two things. One, it's finding this balance in our lives of masculine and feminine energy. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like man or woman, but I think a lot of what we're told and a lot of what's modeled through a male dominated society is this very masculine way of being where productivity bros and the doing and the balls are going to fall, and you've got to hack every corner of your life.
yeah,
And I think that women are rising and we've got a different way. And I'm not anti-man, I am about exploring a more feminine way of being where it's not celebrated to drive yourself into the ground, where it's okay to soften and receive, which you're talking about, feels
yeah,
damn good.
yeah,
And it's okay to ask for help.
yeah. It's super foreign. I don't know what you said that made that come up for me. That was so interesting because I'm looking back at my notes. I don't even necessarily know. But this was so good. I mean, I appreciate listening to all of this. I know the ladies listening live and on the replay are really eating some of this up. I'd love for you, as we're kind of closing up here, would love for you to speak a little bit about like who you are, what you do, and who should be reaching out to you. Like, who do you help? Who do you work with?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that invitation. So, the easiest way to connect with me is to subscribe to the Electric Ideas podcast. It's all about helping women with a special place in my heart for caregivers feel lit up again from within. And I hang out on Instagram. I share stories and tips. You can connect with me there on @WhitneyWoman. And I run programs and workshops that are a blend of kind of bespoke teaching and tools that help women stop, take a power pause, and tune in so that they make sure that these priorities in their life are actually showing up on the calendar and they're getting to what matters most. And they're not in such autopilot go mode that they get to the end of the day and they don't know what happened and they have regret. So the women who I work with the most are moms of school age kids that are probably coming up for air a little bit and are like, whoa, where'd I go? You know? And they want some time collapsing on that self-reclamation because I've been there. And I have created tools that are exactly what I wish I would have had during that time in my life that was murky.
It's beautiful. People that want to follow you on social, where should they go?
Yeah, Instagram's the best. I would say @WhitneyWoman for now.
@WhitneyWomen.
Whitney Woman.
That's Instagram.
Yes.
And then for those of you that are listening on audio, her website is myelectricideas.com. Myelectricideas.com. It isn't a clickable link in the description below wherever you're listening to us at. This has been great. I so appreciate you coming on. This has been very eye-opening in many areas. I took a ton of notes here. Any closing thoughts as we kind of wrap up?
Well, thank you. It's been great for me. I'm so happy to be here. I would just close with remembering a remembrance for those women who are like, yeah, I do feel like selfish and guilty every time I do something for myself. To challenge yourself this week to think about it as being a generous act. What if you could explore it from a playful perspective and just thinking about choosing things that make you feel good? Doesn't always have to be at the expense of your family or your work, and see how it changes your experience of your lived in days, because I think it's going to have a positive ripple.
Beautiful. Love all of that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing so much with us. Super appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. I love hearing from people. I'm a by women, for women type of gal. So if you have any questions or feedback, I'm an open book and you're welcome to reach out.
Beautiful. Love that. For those of you listening live, for those of you listening on the replay, thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. Remember to follow, like, and share. To those of you that resonated with Whitney and all the goodness that she shared, make sure you check out her website at myelectricideas.com. You can also catch her on Instagram at Whitney Woman. Whitney Woman on Instagram. So thank you so much for being here. This is Her Talk Show. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation Global, where we continue to have uplifting conversations just like this one to help you out every step of the way. Until next time.